What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and I got an interesting video that I wanted to make for y'all. So we're going to be going over what I think are the top 10 best heroes to do a Voltron strategy with in Marvel Champions. And in case you guys do not know, a Voltron strategy in Marvel Champions is where you try to buff up an ally or just to keep them alive for a very long time in the game. Because in Marvel Champions, most allies will take this thing called consequential damage. So if we take a look at the Captain Marvel identity specific ally for Spider-Woman, she has, 2 thwart to attack, but each time she activates or use that thwart power or that attack power, she has to take 1 damage here with that 1 consequential damage little icon right there. So basically, if she activates 3 times, she'll take 3 damage and then gets defeated. And then if you want to Voltron her though, there's ways to increase her hit points, to heal her back up, and just to allow her to activate more times, and even buff up her stats as well, right? Giving her additional thwart and attack. Some heroes in Marvel Champions I think are more well suited to do this type of strategy compared to other heroes. So this would be my top 10 best heroes to do a Voltron ally strategy with in Marvel Champions, and the list is in no particular order. So first we have Spider-Woman here, and I think that there's a couple different things about her that make her a really good hero to do Voltron strategies with. So the first thing is going to be, of course, her identity ally, Captain Marvel. It's a 4-cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 3 hit points. So, pretty decent stats there, but a little bit more expensive. But as a response, after Captain Marvel uses a basic power, you can draw a card. So if you can keep Captain Marvel alive for a very long time, she's pretty much an Avengers Mansion for you, right? Because she'll activate every single turn, and then you can draw a card each time that happens, right? And there are ways to keep her alive. For example, with the Psychic strategy, if you give Captain Marvel, that upgrade because she is an identity ally, you can keep her in play each time Spider-Woman, exhausts to recover. You can also heal Captain Marvel as well. So she's a really good target for that. And another cool thing about Spider-Woman is her deck building ability called Double Agent here, where you can choose 2 aspects instead of 1 during deck building with her. So I really like to play her with the pool aspect because a lot of those pool aspect allies do not take consequential damage, right? They don't have that little consequential damage thing underneath their thwart or attack stat. So that means that if they thwart or attack, they don't take any damage back. So each time they activate, there's no negative consequence, right? So if you can buff them up a lot, have them activate multiple times and rev them up and stuff like that, they can do a ton of damage or a ton of threat removal, in a single turn without any consequence because you can just keep them alive forever. So when you're deck building with Double Agent in mind and you choose the pool aspect, you can also pair that up with the leadership aspect with a lot of buffs, for those pool aspect allies. And even if you're not playing with the pool aspect, you still have access to leadership aspect where you can really use those, powerful upgrades and attach them to whatever allies that you want. Another cool combo with Spider-Woman, and shouts to one of my show members, Evil, who put me on this, is with the Husk ally, because whenever Husk activates, you can spend resources to do certain effects. So if you spend like a mental resource, you can have Husk heal a damage. And Spider-Woman here has Finesse here. It's a 2-cost upgrade. As a hero resource exhausted card to generate a water resource for an aspect card. This also includes for aspect cards abilities, right? Not just paying for the card itself. That was an official ruling that we learned. So if you get Husk into play, you can pretty much heal her every single time with the Finesse on board because Husk is a Justice aspect card. The next hero that I think is really good for Voltron is going to be Star-Lord here. I think that he's one that comes to a lot of people's minds. His identity ally is not going to be as good with that, right? Because with Nova Prime, as a response, after you play Nova Prime from your hand, defeat a non-elite minion. This is a response that happens whenever you play Nova Prime. So he kind of wants to be recurred, not just kept in play. Unlike, Captain Marvel that we saw here, she can trigger her response each time she activates. So she's much more well suited for the Voltron than the Nova Prime here. But Star-Lord himself is really good for Voltron because of his hero ability here, where each ally you can show gains the Guardian trait. This is so powerful because there's a lot of ally upgrades in the game that can only be attached to Guardian allies, and Star-Lord makes it so you can attach to basically any ally that he controls because he makes all of his allies Guardians. And he also has his Leader of the Guardians right here, this 3-cost upgrade where each Guardian character you control gets +1 thwart, including all those allies. In addition to this, you have the team up card, Guardians of the Galaxy, where each time you give an ally upgrade to an ally, you can also draw a card. And one of the most common Voltron strategies with Star-Lord is with the Iron Man leadership ally. It's an ally with decent stats, but Star-Lord makes him into a Guardian with his hero ability, and the Iron Man ally makes each upgrade that you attach to him 1 cost less. Most ally upgrades are only 1 cost anyway, so you can attach a bunch of stuff to Iron Man, draw a card for each one with the Guardians of the Galaxy team up card. That way you have a really buffed up Iron Man, and all you have to do after you get that set up is to make sure that he stays healthy by having ways to heal heal him or something like that. The next hero that I think is really good with the Voltron strategy is going to be Vision here. And the main thing with Vision here is that he has a mass form upgrade. It's an intangible side, and on the flip side of that, it's going to be the dense side. And his identity specific ally, Vivian here, is a 2-cost ally, so super cheap. 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 hit points, which is not the best stat line, but while you're in intangible mass form, she gets +2 thwart, and when you're in dense mass form, she gets +2 attack. So basically, you just want to flip forms to whatever you want her to have the better stats to be in, and she'll either have 3 thwart or 3 attack. She is a really good target to make your sidekick because she is an identity-specific ally for Vision, so if you can keep her alive, by giving her extra health and healing her up, then she can activate for a lot, and you give her more buffs, she can do even more thwarting or even more attacking. The next here in this list is going to be Penny Parker, the SPDR spider suit here. And similar to Vision, I think SPDR also has a really good identity-specific ally to keep in play for a long time, just because Venom here has very, very high stats. So it's a 4-cost ally with just 1 thwart and 1 attack naturally and 3 hit points. But Venom gets +1 thwart and +1 attack for each sim counter on her. As a hero response after Venom enters play, you can place a sim count on her for each resource generated by SPDR's sync ratio ability that you use to pay for the Venom ally. In sync ratio, basically whenever you're paying for cards, you can exhaust any interface upgrade you control to generate that upgrade's resources, right? So if you exhaust like this card right here, you can generate a water resource because it is an interface upgrade. Same with if you're exhausting like the host spider as an interface upgrade, same with the psychic link and all of these cards down here as well. You can generate like an energy, a physical, a wild, or a mental, and basically that's kind of what you want to do for SPR to get her set up. So you can build her out here, and then you can use them all, 4 of them to pay for Venom. You can give Venom to 5 thwart and 5 attack, which is an insane stat line without any ally upgrades. And then if you can, give a sidekick to Venom, you keep her in play forever, and she is activating every single turn and thwart for 5 or attack for 5. This powerful ally right here makes Penny Parker a really good hero to do Voltron strategies with. The next hero in the list we got is going to be X-23 here. And the main thing with X-23 is with Honey Badger. It's her 2-cost identity-specific ally with 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 hit points. So not that great of a stat line, but as a hero response, after Honey Badger takes any amount of damage, you can ready X-23. This is so powerful because you want Honey Badger to activate it multiple times because she'll take consequential damage, and each time that happens, she can ready up X-23. One thing to note with this is that she has to be alive after she takes the damage in order to use a response, right? So if she only has 1 hit point left and then she takes a consequential damage, well, the response window of when she takes damage, right, X-23, it's kind of passed because Honey Badger is now defeated. She goes in discard pile before she ensures that hero response. So you gotta make sure that she has at least 2 hit points left before the activation so that when she takes the damage, she can just remain alive. If you can buff up Honey Badger's hit points, you can give her like a sidekick or other ally upgrades to increase hit points. You can actually get a lot of value out of her if you use like command teams or like get ready to give her more readies, because each time she readies up and activates and takes a consequential damage, you can ready up X-23 on top of that, and X-23 can activate again and you can just do tons of damage. Even though this is a really strong strategy, I do want to mention that there is a foil to this plan, and that's going to be the obligation for X-23. I think it's going to be at the bottom over here. So her obligation is right here, self-isolation. So you give to the X-23 player, and when this card comes to play, you search your hand, deck, discard pile, and play area for Honey Badger. So wherever she is, you grab her, and you place her face down underneath this obligation. If you cannot discard this card, do yourself a face down counter card. So basically, if you are doing a Voltron strategy, you just grab Honey Badger, you put her face down underneath this card. Then as a response, after you make a base recovery, discard the obligation and Honey Badger. So if you don't make that base recovery, Honey Badger would just be behind the self-isolation, and since this card cannot be removed from the game, it can only get discarded. Even if you buff Honey Badger a lot, each time this card comes back out, you lose Honey Badger, and all those upgrades that are attached to Honey Badger will also get discarded. Like the Sidekick Ally upgrade, for example, will get discarded, which kind of stinks. So my personal favorite strategy with X-23 is actually not a Voltron strategy, but actually a ally recursion strategy to recur Honey Badger over and over again, because Sisterhood is a way to tutor her out, and you can add her to your hand, and you can play her back down and then have her activate immediately. That being said, if you have a way to control the encounter deck or prevent that obligation from coming out, or if you just want to roll the dice and get lucky and hope that you don't get the obligation, I think that X-23 is definitely still a really good hero to do a Voltron strategy with, just because Honey Badger is so powerful. The next hero that I think is going to be really good to Voltron with is actually going to be Jubilee here, because of her identity ally Wolverine. And Wolverine's a 4-cost ally with 1 thwart, 2 attack, but know that he does take 2 consequential damage after using his basic attack. His attacks also have piercing though, which is really powerful, and he has 4 hit points, which is really beefy. As a response, after you change the alter ego, you can heal 3 damage from Wolverine. So Wolverine doesn't even necessarily need Sidekick for him to recover. All Jubilee has to do is slip down to alter ego, and you're healing Wolverine by 3 health. So if you do buff him up and you do make him your Sidekick, you can heal even more health from Wolverine. And one cool thing about Jubilee is that she has tons of stunts and confuses in your kit. Like with all of her firecrackers where you can stun an enemy, and she also has blinding flash where you can stun and confuse, and the flash of light here where you can also confuse an enemy. This helps with her Voltron because it helps her stay alive because the villain won't activate, so you don't need to have allies to chump block for you. A lot of times if you're playing a strategy where you need allies to block the hit, then the ally can't stay in play forever because they'll get taken out after defending for you for that like heavy villain attack. But since Jubilee can stun and confuse the villain, she can keep Wolverine in play. He doesn't need to defend for her, and then he can stay in play for a very long time, do tons of damage or tons of thwarting throughout the course of a game. The next hero that I think is really good for Voltron is Peter Parker's Spider-Man from the core set here, and that's mainly because of Black Cat right here. So his identity ally is a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 hit points. And she does have this force response where after you play her, you have to discard top 2 cards of your deck and add each card with the printed mental resource to your hand. That doesn't really help her Voltron or anything like that, but note here that under her attack stat, there is no consequential damage icon, right? Unlike the thwart stat. So basically, if you have Black Cat in play, you could exhaust her attack every single turn, and she will stay in play forever. You just gotta make sure that she can keep her 2 health. This makes one of the biggest problems of Voltron already solved, right? Where the ally, you don't have to keep them alive because the Black Cat's not taking consequential damage if she's attacking. So that means if you buff her up a lot with a bunch of ally upgrades, give her an honorary Avengers, and give her like a Sky Cycle on top of that so that she can activate twice in a turn while she's swinging super duper hard every single turn. And just like with Jubilee, Spider-Man's very, very tanky. He has like backflips to help keep him alive. He also has the webbed up here as well, right, where you can block out villain activations, so that he also does not need allies to chump block for him, so he can also stay alive and have Black Cat keep doing her thing without needing her to defend and block for Spider-Man. The next hero on this list is going to be Magik Ilyana Rasputin from the Age of Apocalypse expansion here. I think she's really good in particular, not because of Colossus, right? Colossus is a very strong ally, but he's not that good to Voltron with because he has really good stats, but his interrupt here is whenever an enemy attacks you, you can play Colossus from your hand by paying his resource cost and declaring him defender without exhausting. And since he has toughness, he also comes in with a tough stats card. Well, tough stats cards and an effect like this is really good whenever it enters play, not keeping them in play forever, right? Because if he loses a tough, he won't get it back unless he gets defeated and you play him back down again, right? So you want to recur Colossus. You don't really want to buff him up, keep him in play forever. But the main reason why Magik is so good Voltron allies is because of her hero ability here, where you play with the top card of your deck face up. This is really good for a few allies. So one of them is actually in the Age of Apocalypse expansion here. It's going to be Legion from a Bishop's Precon deck. It's a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 3 hit points. So not the best stat line, but as a response after he uses a basic power, you can discard top card of your deck. If the resources is, a energy, you do 2 damage to enemy. If it's a mental, you remove 2 threat from a scheme. And if it's a physical, you heal 2 damage from Legion. Well, this is really powerful because since you can see the top card of your deck with Magik's ability, you can make sure you always get the one you want because Magik also has a lot of ways to manipulate the top card of your player deck. So whenever Legion is about to get defeated, you can give him that physical resource so that he can heal his life back up. You can also do more damage or remove more threat whenever you want to. If you buff Legion up by giving him more ally upgrades, he can do even more on top of that. Another really good ally to pair with Magik is going to be the Hulk ally, and Hulk is the aggression ally from the core set. He costs 2 and has 5 hit points, but he has his force response, and it's kind of like a risky one, right? It's force, so you have to do it. Each time he activates, you use a top card of your player deck. But since Magik can look at the top card of your deck, you know exactly what you're getting with Hulk. So you do have to find ways to keep him alive and to like heal him up, maybe with like a first aid or something like that. But Hulk can get immense value throughout the course of a game. And if you can control Hulk always discarding a physical resource from the top of your deck, there's no real negative consequence from using him. And you can always do 2 more damage on top of his attack of 3. Crazy, crazy good stuff. Magik also works really well with Cosmo. So with Cosmo, after you activate with Cosmo, you can discard a top card of a deck that you choose. So you can choose your player deck. And since you can see a top card, you have to like guess and call what it is, right? So let's say you call like an upgrade, and then you discard the upgrade because you know what it was. And if you guess correctly, Cosmo does not take consequential damage. That's so powerful because basically Cosmo will stay in play forever. So if you buff Cosmo up a lot, then they activate a whole bunch of times and basically never get defeated. The next hero similar to Magik is Falcon here, but unlike Magik where you look at the top card of the player deck, Falcon's hero ability is during the player phase, you play with the top card of the encounter deck face up. So just like we talked about before with Cosmo, instead of choosing the player deck, if you're playing Cosmo with Falcon, you choose the encounter deck. You can see that it's going to be a treachery or like an attachment. You call out, treachery. Then you discard that top card, which you already know is a treachery. And then Cosmo would not take constant damage after Cosmo activates. So the exact same thing with Magik. If you buff up Cosmo a lot, they can activate forever and never get defeated. Falcon is also an area character, and in his pre-con deck, he introduced new area cards such as Wingman right here is a 0 cost upgrade. You can attach to an area ally, max 1 per ally. Basically, as interrupt, whenever another area ally would take any amount of consequential damage, you can exhaust this attached ally to prevent one of the damage. So basically, you're going to have, one of the allies just always exhaust itself, but you can prevent damage to another stronger area ally. So usually you'll want an aerial ally that's really powerful, like Spectrum, for example. She's aerial, costs 5, but if you play her and you tuck a card used to pay for her, and that card is a WA resource, she gets +2 thwart, +2 attack, and +2 hit points. So 5 hit points, 3 thwart, 3 attack. Keeping her in play, giving the wingman to the other aerial allies can be very powerful. Falcon also has some unique ways to stay alive so that he does not need allies to chump block for him. With the Vibranium Microwave, it's a 2 cost upgrade. He gets +1 defense. And when a Falcon would take any amount of damage, he can exhaust his card, prevent 1 damage, and deal with damage to enemy. So you get this card here, Falcon essentially has like 4 defense, right? Because his defense is naturally 2. He gets +1. And then you can also exhaust the card to prevent 1 more. He also has a draw their fire. It's a 1 cost per player upgrade. So in solos, it's only going to cost 1. 2 players, it's going to cost 2, and so on. As a hero response after the villain phase begins, you can discard this card, and if Falcon does not exhaust to defend until the end of the phase, so even if you have like a bunch of minions, Falcon can defend all their attacks without exhausting them, just keeping him alive, so you do not need to use the allies like Spectrum to block the hits. And then finally, the last hero that I think is really good to Voltron with, and I actually think that Maria Hill might be the best hero to do a Voltron ally strategy with, and that's mainly because of her hero ability here, where each ally you control gains a shield trait. So similar to Star-Lord, instead of making all of her allies guardians, she makes all of them shield. And this is really powerful on top of her deck building ability, where you may include the maximum number of copies of 3 shield supports in your deck from aspects other than your chosen aspect. This means that no matter what aspect that you play with Maria Hill, you can always include 3 copies of Field Agent. And Field Agent, I think, is an auto included for Maria Hill. It's only a 1 cost shield support, so super duper cheap. And when a shield ally would take constant damage, you can exhaust the shield agent to prevent 1 of the damage. And with Maria Hill, all the allies are shield agents, and then you can always exhaust Field Agent to protect any ally. And it runs out of counters though, right? Because it comes in with, 3 backup counters. Well, Maria Hill, she has so many ways to add more counters on other shield supports. So you can move counters and refill those backup counters on the Field Agent to keep it in play basically forever, which will keep all of her allies in play forever as well. On top of that, she also has Nick Fury as her identity specific ally with the really powerful response. After Nick Fury uses a basic power, place 1 all-purpose counter on a shield support. That's exactly what Maria Hill's kit wants to do anyways. And with Nick Fury, you don't even need to make him your psychic, because as long as you have 1 Field Agent, Nick Fury will just stay in play forever. And as long as that Field Agent never goes away, which each time Nick Fury activates, he can literally place that all-purpose counter back on the Field Agent, and that Field Agent can keep Nick Fury alive. So you don't even need to do sidekick with Nick Fury, he'll just stay in play naturally. So if you buff him up a lot, he'll stay in play forever. And because she can include the maximum number of, shield supports from different aspects, you can also include 3 copies of Command Team to give your allies more readies, keep them alive with the Field Agents. So not only are the allies staying alive thanks to the Field Agents, they can also ready up and activate multiple times because of the Command Teams. So Maria Hill not only gives allies like longevity, but also burst value by letting them ready up and activate again to have more board impact on any given turn. And that concludes this list. So these are the top 10 heroes in Marvel Champions that I think are the best to do a Voltron ally strategy with. Let me know down in the comments, did you agree or disagree? Which heroes do you play Voltron strategies with a lot? Are there any on this list? And are there any heroes that I missed out here that you think are really good? Let me know down in the comments. I hope you guys all enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.